This is Tom Riggs with MindWire and Hero Frenzel with MindWire. So
Right.
let's go. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So what we're going to talk about today is really what we've seen and heard from clients in terms of this topic. Why are leadership programs struggling? And we're going to share our response to that in terms of what we've come up with, again, informed by you, our clients, in terms of trying to tackle it. So I think we know leadership is probably harder than ever and more important than ever, right? Before all this, it was already hard. We had this global pandemic that I don't think we're back to any version of normal with at all, right? We still are feeling the effects of all of that. And what we've heard is this declining investment in leadership training, either sporadic or inconsistent or just haven't done it at all for lots of clients. And that's not an accusation, that's just a fact. Lots of organizations have just not done what they've wanted to do with it. What else is going on? Well, there's plenty of organizations that have gone all remote or some hybrid, and even some clients that have come all the way back to work. But you start introducing hybrid and remote and spend all your day on Zoom or Teams, that leadership job, which was already hard, gets even harder, right? And even for those organizations that we've talked to where everyone's come back, there's this lack of connection. People are feeling like the human connection, the trust building, the ability to cement those relationships is more uncommon, harder to do, more important than ever. And I think we're all feeling that, right? And connection is the way that trust and everything else that from a leadership standpoint is important is built upon. Employees learned the lesson really, really well through the pandemic that I actually have more employment options than I thought, and they're exercising them, right? And in terms of saying, this isn't the right place for me, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I know I can. And even in a tougher economy, guess who has the most options? Your best employees, right? Everyone wants those good folks. You have a new generation where their priorities are evolving. You got lots of people who are young in their career who go, I can't even afford to buy a house, a first house, a starter house. And so I'm not going to necessarily kill myself for nothing, right? I got to be going somewhere. There has to be purpose. There has to be meaning. Otherwise, what am I doing this for? Because I'm certainly not, getting ahead. So we're facing that, right? And leaders are busier than ever, right? They have more on their plates. They have more to do, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, the training investment and the evolving employee priorities, leaders, a big retention factor, a big engagement factor is there investment in me? Is my organization helping me get better, right? So that's all of that's conspiring to make this harder. And it was already hard, for sure. A couple of stats that might grab your attention. Most new managers get no formal training, right? They were great individual contributors. They're great high performers. We put them in the job and we say, good luck. Let us know how it turns out, right? Which is just crazy, right? The job is really hard and we're not training them. Less than half of all managers say they get the training they need to do their job, right? This is actually globally, not just in the US. Less than half say I've got the training I need to do the job. And right, we know if you've got a turnover problem, you got a leadership problem, right? If you got an engagement problem, you got a leadership problem, right? These things are not related to how good the coffee is or isn't, right? The leader is the big deal in this thing, and we're not equipping them. And almost every employee says, I'd stay longer if I had some career development, if I knew there was a path, if there was some investment in me, right? And as much as people want to complain about the younger generation, and by the way, every generation has complained about the younger generation since the beginning of time, right? But what are some of these younger employees saying? Training and development is really important to me, right? They've watched their parents work somewhere 20, 30, 40 years. All of a sudden, the rug gets pulled out and they don't have a good plan B, right? And so they're smart and they're saying, I want to be able to grow my skills and be capable, right? And this includes your leaders, for sure. And are leaders too busy to succeed? Most executives say, I'm spending too much time on pointless interactions. 10% of managers say they're spending their time in committed, purposeful manner. 58, I don't even have time for training and development. And this one ought to grab our attention. almost 8 out of 10 middle managers are risk of burnout, right? Think about that middle manager job. It's the hardest leadership job in the organization. They get a bunch of bosses on top of them, right, that they have to satisfy. And they're usually leading a lot of key individual contributors at the front line of the business. It's a really difficult job for sure. So if we think, hey, it's just fine, they'll figure it out, uh, that's wishful thinking for sure. That's hope as a strategy, and that's not what's happening for sure. So, what have we seen and heard from people about why leadership training isn't working? Too much pour and snore, highbrow theory, right? Leaders need practical solutions. Like, give me the things that I need to solve for right now with my team and with my job, right? Trying to teach behaviors instead of skills. We want all of our leaders to be innovative and risk taking. Well, good luck. I want Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy to show up, but they're not coming through that door either, right? Like trying to teach behaviors, hardwired behaviors that are in someone to every leader instead of the skills. Skills are anything someone can learn, practice, improve. It's just not going to work, right? And it doesn't work for sure. Assuming the fundamentals aren't necessary, right? How to have good one-on-ones, how to coach, how to delegate, right? Where did leaders learn to do this before they learned to do this really well, right? The fundamentals are really necessary for sure. And the everyday applicability, right? Leaders have problems right now that they need to go solve back on the job. And so if what they're learning, they can't immediately apply, good luck, right? And then we all know that satisfaction surveys are fine in terms of did we create a good learning environment, but that's not measurement, right? A lack of where were they before and did we move the needle after is a big deal for sure. And events can be great, but they fade, right? Even a really great training event fades if it's not tied to some ongoing capability. So those are the things that we're hearing and have heard over the last couple of years from people. And so we said, all right, let's see if we can go fix that and solve that, right? And one more, right? There's a budget and bandwidth trap. L&D and HR folks all the time, right? They earn the budget for training or development or whatever for their team. And then all of a sudden we do a budget reforecast or things change and those hard-earned dollars suddenly get pulled back that you were planning on using with your leaders and it's no longer there, right? I think everyone's probably been through that exercise. Yeah, we'll get to it, right? Everyone's trying to get the laundry out every day. And then you can put this off a little bit because there's no immediate penalty for not training your leaders, right? The penalty is when you realize that we've gone too far and things are bad, it's hard to catch up in a hurry, right? So it's easy to put this off because it's not urgent, right? It might be a critical thing, but it's not urgent. Urgent is get the laundry out, so we put it off. And our teams are just really busy, right? And busy is doing, right? Especially from a leadership standpoint, instead of leading. And if we haven't taught them how to not be the chief doing officer, what do we expect them to do? They're going to go do chief doing officer because it's what's helped them be successful. So again, this is a frustration from a standpoint of a lot of the HR, L&D, and other folks we work with say, this is what I'm fighting, even when we think it's a good idea, for sure. So the good intentions, right? It's not what builds good leaders, it's consistency. And the organizations that we see that do it well, they are consistent about it, right? They just keep going and they're not trying to catch up all at once, but they're trying to keep in front of their leaders with a program, with some curriculum, with some consistency of learning that is skill-based and immediately applicable. And that's what's winning. So we said, okay, we want to try to help solve this problem. So what we created is a program that's around leader-centered experience. So we do a lot of things in our classroom experience in our program that is, we're not going to get up and wag our finger at leaders and tell them, you know, you should and how come you haven't. We talk to them and say, who is the best you ever worked at delegating and what did they do that was so effective for you? What did they not do so that they can connect to the value of it and go, yeah, that's what great looks like. And I remember how important that was for me. I'm connected to that. And then they're leaders, right? So we're going to give them a few best practices, a few key skills, right, on how to do this and what good looks like. And then we're going to get them kinetic, which is, you know, they'll moan and groan all day, but role plays, activities, scenarios, applications, we need them to learn this skill. And we can't have them sit in their chair if they're going to learn skills. We got to have them practice it in their real world. And everything we do is always with a PI application. So again, say we're talking about coaching. How do my behaviors impact what I might do well in coaching and what I might not do well and need to watch out for? And then we make them bring the PI behavioral assessments of their direct reports so that they can actually look at their direct reports and build a plan to say, with Hero, I need to do more of this and less of this. And with John, I need to blah, 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 so that it gets really real. And we also know these leaders are busy. So we make time so that they have to do their homework in class, meaning they build very specific action plans on each of their direct reports in class. So there's nothing to get in their way of immediately go apply tomorrow on the job. So every module we have is based on this kind of approach so that it's in their world. They're talking about themselves and their real direct reports, their real leadership problems. They practice it, and then they get a plan done so that there's nothing in the way of immediately implementing some of the skills they learned. And that's all just about confidence, right? We're just trying to develop confidence so that they can get going, for sure. So when we do these things, right, there's ongoing learning beyond it, because we don't just train them. There's sustainment sessions. There's other things that we do to follow up on it and make sure that they're implementing what they said they were going to, that they have a resource to help ask and answer questions and get problems solved, et cetera. And because PI is the backbone of it, they get software access. So now that they understand PI, because we teach them PI in the class, they get software access so they can go use all the tools in there. And that's this ongoing capability, right? And they're starting to learn this language of people and data. And that's always a central theme, whether it's coaching or it's delegation or whatever. We're going to work on those skills, but it's with PI, and the PI software access gives them a tool and a place to go use what they learned in class and more. And believe it or not, everyone who comes to our workshop, they get unlimited one-on-one coaching and support from their MindWire VP. So at any time, they can call their VP and say, hey, I'm thinking about, I'm working on, can you help me? The answer is yes, we can and we will, right? So we want this event to lead to capability, right? By having these follow-up tools and these things that happen afterwards. And we're going to measure, right? We're going to have the behavioral data, but we also have a pre and post skill assessment that we have people go through. And I'll show you that so you can see where they started and where their improvement was and what else they might need to go work on, where else they might need to go work on, et cetera. So our program has 10 modules, right? Some of them are 8 hours long in person, some are 4 hours. We do them in person or virtually. And once you've done this first one, self-aware leader, it's an a la carte menu. You can choose any of these modules in any order you want. You know, some leaders go to certain ones, some leaders go to other ones. But these are the modules and the things that we are teaching on. And how did we come up with them? Well, you came up with them. We went and asked you guys, what are the things you need your leaders to be skilled in? And this was basically the list. And people said, here's what we need them to really be working on, right? And again, I use the word skill. We're doing things that anyone can learn, practice, improve upon. Some are going to get better than others, for sure, but there's not anything we're teaching that someone can't get better on and build as a skill, right? And that's why there's so much intensity on role plays and practice and application in their real world. All right, so this is a la carte. Once people have done the self-aware leader, which is the prereq, because they learn some PI things in there, they learn more about how do I lead? How do I show up? How do others see me, right? We're working a lot on EQ stuff in there. Then that foundation lets them be ready for any other module that's in this kind of array here that you see. And the tier 1 and tier 2 is just kind of a way to think about it. Tier 1 are really some of those very basic fundamentals, if you will. Tier 2 tends to be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more higher level. But we've had some clients who are having them leaders go through self-aware leader, and then they're going straight to some of these other modules, right? We have others who are going, I just want to start with tier 1 for these leaders because that's what my folks need. But we wanted to provide some flexibility there for sure. And again, in person or virtual for sure. Powerful questions, for instance, right? I think most of us know that asking really good questions is a really good leadership key for sure. And yet, did we ever teach leaders how to ask really good questions, right? Or what kinds of questions to ask, or how to get some practice and do this? Nope, we didn't, right? At least I was absent in leadership school when they taught this one. I think most of us were. So we're saying, let's give them some of these fundamentals. And a number of clients have said, are these for frontline leaders only? Our initial intention was, kind of leaders of individuals, leaders of leaders. That would probably be mostly where this lived. But we had a lot of clients come and go, look, my executives are VPs, need this as desperately as everybody else, and we want them to go through it too. And we've had some exec teams go through it, and to our surprise and delight, fully engaged and went, this is great. This is really good. And the way that happened is we had some leaders of leaders come in and go, our bosses need to go to this. When do they get to go? Right. And they talked them into it. And then it was a really good experience. So yeah, it might be leaders of individuals, leaders of leaders is mostly where it lives, but we've had great success with levels above that too. Right. And we could talk for some time about why that's probably true, that executives need this as badly as anyone, but that's maybe a different webinar for sure. All right. So that's the curriculum. And let's talk about the skill assessment a little bit. I mentioned that when people participate in the program, they can take a benchmark skill assessment and then they can rebench after they're done so that we can see where they do or where they progressed, excuse me. So there's these areas that we assess overall: self-awareness, how they build engagement, drive performance, empower others, and create great teams. Right. So Rachel gets a benchmark before the program and you can see her scores on a 1 to 5. And then you can see afterwards, right, what kind of progress has she made in what areas? And the actual scores are less important than the improvement, right? And Rachel getting a sense of where am I? Where have I improved? Where can I go work on some other things, right? Maybe self-awareness is her next thing to work on to improve her scores, for sure. So this is not a 360. This is a really short, about 15-minute skill assessment. So Rachel would assess herself and rate herself on these categories. And then Rachel's direct reports would, as a group, rate her, and Rachel's boss would rate her. Right? 360s tend to be super broad. Behaviors and skills and learning agility, way too much stuff and way too many raters that really don't know how Rachel leads. So we're only asking the people that know how Rachel leads, including herself, to rate herself, right? And part of what Rachel will get in her report is if she's rated herself higher than everyone else has, we'll call that out to go, Rachel, you got some delusions of grandeur going on there that you need to go close the gap on because you think you're magical and no one else does. So you got to go. Or Rachel's rated herself much lower than everyone else does. And that's a room for her to know she's actually better at that than she thinks. Right. So we're trying to take these snapshots of skill. And then if you get a whole team going, then what you can do is look at where's my whole group on self-awareness? Where did they start? Where did they get to? Right. And across these things, so you can track improvement and then drive that back and look at it and go, how's that showing up in performance of our leaders? Right. It could be a level, it could be a department, could be anything you need, but at least it's more than a smile survey as a way to go, how are we doing? What's the progress we're making on these things that we're trying to teach and work on from a skill standpoint? So that is available as part of the program. And by the way, if any of you want to just test drive the leadership skill assessment on yourself or on a couple of leaders on your team, no problem. We'll do that for you free of charge and give you the results and walk you through them and help you know what it means. So it's just a good way to kind of find out maybe where are my leaders, right? So maybe you have 4 or 5 you want to know about. Maybe it's 4 or 5 really good ones and you go, what makes them great? Or just a group or a department or a team. But let us know and we're happy to get you that and let you look at that. So the other thing we heard is we need the ability to purchase a leadership program, have it be simple. So we've developed a credit system, right? So our cohorts to teach a module, at least 8, because we do lots of role plays, skill practice activities. We need 8 so we can get that energy and variety going, up to 28. And again, in person or virtual for a module, right? You buy credits. So at the time you buy through an SOW, you could buy credits for the program, meaning they're transferable. You can move them from person to person. So you don't need to worry about, well, we hired a new person or this person left. Just transfer those credits. You can change your mind at any time. I thought we wanted to do these modules, but now that we're in November, we've changed our mind, we want to do these. Great, no problem, for sure, right? And like we said, you can choose the modules, the order, the pace that you want to do it, right? You could do one a month. We have a client who's doing one a month over the next 12 months. We have others who are going every 2 or 3 weeks and they're going to get it done in 3 or 4 months kind of thing. So that's totally up to you. And we can even break these modules down into more bite-sized chunks so that if an 8-hour day is too much, you go, okay, let's do 2 4-hour sessions over a couple of weeks. It might be easier to schedule and those kind of things. The more credits you buy at once, the more there's a volume price break for you, right? It's related to how many you buy at one time. And like we said, in person or virtual, and we can break them up. And you have 12 months to use your credits. And if you don't use them, they expire, but we will roll over 15% to another year, right? To the next year. Why? Because people said to us, clients said, give us some urgency. I want to buy these credits right now and not wait 6 months until we plan to train. So you can buy them now, pay for them now, train in 6 months, and it creates urgency inside your own organization to go, look, guys, we got to use them or we're going to lose them. So this came from clients saying, help us create urgency that we got to use them and we got to get people into class for sure. So that's the program. And this all came from clients saying, make this easy. So that's what we've done is buy credits. So you can change people and modules, right? In person or virtual, and you can change your mind along the way. And again, 12 months to use them. And if you need to roll over 15% of them, you can to another year. And we'll help you track all this. We'll give you the reporting. We're going to make it very, very easy for you. Basically, you need to tell us who you want to have, go where, and when. And then we'll take it from there from you and track this and make the reporting easy. So the 4 things we would say, consistency, right? What did we hear and learn from clients? Consistency. We need to hit some basics and make sure every leader is pretty good at them and just have a consistent approach to leadership training and development. You can't catch up, right? By the time it's a crisis, we're behind and you're not going to get there fast, right? And the crisis is retention, engagement, development, high potentials and high performers not sticking around, right? And leaders who are disengaged because they don't have tools. This training and development, we've seen a number of clients use it really successfully as a retention tool, and told their leaders, this is a big deal because you're a big deal. We're investing in you. This is a way that we're signaling to you how important you are and a big deal. And it's really resonated for them for sure in terms of leaders feeling like, yeah, I'm out there fighting the battles alone. Measurement before and after, right? Smile surveys are fine. Did we do a nice job creating a good learning environment? But that's not what leaders want to see. What they want to see is there's some way you can tell me what progress we're making, right? And so that's why we built this skill assessment to say, at least we can measure some improvement. At least we can get some data around these leadership skills for sure as a good starting point. And then capability versus an event. A great event is fine. But if it isn't tied to a bigger strategy and there's not somewhere for leaders to kind of keep this going, it'll fade like everything else does. And so we're trying to combat that with PI software access, sustainment, ongoing coaching, and other exercises after the actual training event to keep resources in front of leaders and keep this top of mind, right? I think we all know when leaders see this stuff, they get excited about PI, right? They think PI is wonderful and great and kind of, geez, where you been all my life? This PI stuff has given me all the answers to why Hero does this and doesn't do that and why I need to do a better job and how I could do a better job with Hero. So getting started, if you want to talk more about this, you can book a meeting with us to explore it or just get a leadership assessment on yourself or a few others, right? Either of those are fine. You just email us at support@mindwiregroup.com and we'll get you set up with that for sure.